I have a question, Minister, for you, and just an observation as well. The question is that I honestly believe, and watching the Twitter feed and Facebook there, that the real issue for people is the sealing of the archive for 30 years. And obviously TUSLA is a big one, that's why we're pushing this amendment very much. But if the sealing of the archive falls under another piece of legislation, the 2004 Act, and if it is something that you don't fully agree with, shouldn't you have attempted to amend that Act to stop that happening? And if you haven't attempted to amend it, or that's not appropriate, will you please explain? And if it's possible to amend it, couldn't you take up my suggestion and look to push the report back in order to then bring in an amendment to the 2004 Act before the report is in your possession and you have to seal it? And an observation I'd like to make about this whole process. You haven't got a single deputy from the government parties here to speak up for this bill today. You're being thrown under the bus by the lot of them and left on your own. And I'm particularly amazed and a bit disgusted, to be honest, that there aren't any female deputies from Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael or the Greens that have the courage to come in here today and defend this legislation.
Thank you, Deputy. Any further deputies before I go back to the Minister? Minister.
Thank you, Count Corlett. Just in response to the queries about the issue of delay and the issue of the sealing of the archive, when I've said I want to look at the issue of the sealing of the archive, I said I want to look at it in particular in relation to personal information. To completely remove the sealing of the archive, which is provided for in the 2004 Act, and which is what the last 5 years have been, everything that the judges, that the commissioners, the 3 members of the commission have done has been on the basis of the sealing, and on the basis of the understanding that everyone who was involved in the process of the commission were working on where the legal framework was that of a 30-year sealing at the end of this process. As some deputies have suggested, completely unseal the entire archive. The risk there is that you immediately have challenges to the Commission's report. We've seen it with tribunals. We've seen tribunals have been challenged, and we've seen tribunals that years have been spent establishing and those tribunals being undertaken, and then the findings of those tribunals been struck out by the courts because of issues as regards fair procedures. So I don't underestimate the challenge in addressing the 30-year rule. But I do think, particularly for access to personal information, we can make the case. And particularly if we look at the GDPR and look at the ways in which GDPR could be potentially used. And that's my commitment, to try and find pathways to address that through that way. But I don't think this will be done quickly. And that's why I don't want to see the report delayed on that basis. Because I think I believe that getting the report published and getting the outcome of the work that the commissioners have done over the last 5 years into the public domain is going to be an incredibly important moment. It's not the only moment in this entire process. There will be recommendations that the government will need to consider, and I'll be urging the government to act on. But I think getting that report published is an incredibly important moment. And and I want to see that delivered on the 30th of October, as the Commission have indicated they intend to. Thank you.